As Halloween for 2021 fast approaches, or has been and gone depending on when you watch this video, let's take a look at 5 more Chinese horror movies you should watch on Halloween. This is a follow-up to last year's video where I recommended the films Bunshinsaba 3, Haunted Road, The Strange House, Dead Space, and Ghost in Barbers. I've got some interesting and entertaining choices for this year, so let's check out 2021's 5 more Chinese horror movies you should watch on Halloween. Enjoy! I'm surprised I didn't put this in the first video last year, but it's here for this year's version, and with a good reason. This is the #1 highest grossing horror movie in China ever, and will probably never be beaten considering the movie in second place, its 2017 sequel, only made half of the box office this one did. Starring the beautiful Taiwanese actress Ruby Lin and Hong Kong veteran Francis Ng, and directed by Hong Kong's Raymond Yip, who also directed Lin in both Bloodstained Shoes and Phantom of the Theatre. The use of non-mainland Chinese actors and directors was a smart move. There are several gimmicks in the House That Never Dies series that makes them interesting films. They're set in the present time in a large Beijing mansion that holds a strong connection to the spirits of past residents. The actors also play dual roles of both the present and past characters. In this film, Ruby Lin plays an author in the present time who moves with her daughter to the mansion to be with her husband, who she suspects is having an affair with his assistant. While in the mansion, she witnesses supernatural events which are connected to the house's horrible past. In the past, Lin plays a prostitute by the name of Lu, who falls in love with a man from a noble family who lives in the mansion. His family play a trick on Lu, forcing her to marry his recently deceased brother and burying her alive in a coffin, only for her to be rescued as it's discovered she is pregnant. The theatrical version was released in true 3D and was highly acclaimed by critics and moviegoers, even inspiring segments of the audience to visit the actual location of the mansion featured in the film. While it does have the usual Chinese horror movie ending, the effects used throughout are quite decent. The acting is solid and not overdone, and the storyline is captivating in its use of the parallel timelines and the actors playing dual roles. This movie can be found easily enough on Netflix. This is another movie that is both highly regarded by the audiences and made a good return at the box office. Mortal Ouija is a far more serious horror movie than most on this list, and is one of the better, if not the best, films of the Dixian, or Plate Fairy, movie genre. Released in 2019 with a rumoured follow-up due in 2022, Mortal Ouija tells the tale of a divorced mother and her daughter who take up residence in a large but old apartment close to the daughter's school. At all times, the apartment is cold and musty, and at night a foul odour can be detected but not located. The previous tenants have left behind a storeroom full of junk, including an old Ouija board and a dish that the daughter, Wen, plays with, conjuring the evil spirit within. Supernatural incidents occur in the apartment, and with the help of a few science spirit busters, they determine there is actually nothing abnormal occurring, but the incidents keep happening. Wen falls into a coma and is hospitalized. Her mother makes contact with the previous owner, who advises her that the Ouija board contains a spirit that must be passed on to another person within 7 days of conjuring, or it will kill the person who called it. The movie keeps up the supernatural pretense all the way, and even though it's forced to explain the spirit as being a person dressed up, it then overrides that right at the end, creating an almost completely satisfactory ending. The whole movie is worth a watch. It's one of the rare Chinese horror films that builds up the tension throughout and has a nice little nod to American films like The Conjuring and Japanese films like The Ring. This movie is very difficult to find with English subtitles, as it's never officially been released with them, meaning you'll need to rely on the fan sub to enjoy this, which is mostly a decent effort. 2017's The Door is a very interesting Chinese slasher film, a horror genre which is always overlooked in favour of the supernatural and spirit type movies, which is strange because the slasher film should have the least restrictions on them. The Door is set in an abandoned factory where a movie crew has assembled late at night to begin filming. One by one, the cast and crew go missing as it's discovered there is someone, or a few someones, hunting down everyone and punishing them for a previous incident that all of them were somehow involved with. It's hardly an original film, but the levels of violence and sex in the film are quite unusual for a Chinese movie. Strictly speaking, there's no actual nudity in the film, but the sex scene is quite vigorous and the women are dressed in some skimpy clothing at certain points in the film. If you're paying enough attention to the movie, it's rather obvious how it ends as it telegraphs it right at the beginning. Whether you enjoy the payoff is debatable, but the journey to get there is steeped in traditional horror elements that at certain times that will have you forgetting the film you are watching is actually Chinese. If you want to watch this, just search for the title on YouTube, with the official CCTV movie channel featuring this movie with English subtitles. A list of Chinese horror movies wouldn't be complete without a few silly, crazy ones. It also wouldn't be a list without a BCN movie, and these last two cover both of those topics and also come from the same series. They're also well worth a watch. Bunshinsaba vs Sadako 2 is exactly that, the second in the series of films that pits China's pen fairy against Japan's VHS spirit, or in this case, digital video spirit. Just like you'd expect, a group of teens watch a cursed online video which sets Sadako free into the world to kill them. As the group starts to slowly whittle down, the survivors call upon a professor who is a master of dealing with the supernatural, and his sidekick who have an array of machinery they can use to suppress any spirits. But wouldn't you know it, Sadako is just a little too strong for them, so they use an Ouija board to call BCN for help to battle her. Yep, this is a China versus Japan movie, just in spirit battle form, and of course, China wins. It's interesting that this series has decided to cast BCN as the good guy, whereas she is usually shown as the spirit who causes trouble for those who conjure her. To say this movie is a masterpiece would be to very much overrate it. This is just a silly time waster with some decent special effects, a competent story with solid acting, and an ending that works well within regulations that won't leave a dirty taste in your mouth. And as a bonus, you can watch the whole thing for free with English subtitles on YouTube. When you're onto a good thing, stick to it. After producing 2 films in the series, the first of which doesn't contain English subtitles, so it unfortunately remains unwatched, production house Zhonglele, who are also responsible for some of the awesome monster movies that have been released recently, including the incredible entertaining film Landshark, originally planned this movie to be part 3 of the series, and it was going to be released in 2019. But the movie was delayed and given a new title, a very confusing title of Bunshinsaba Hoichi the Earless. I've covered this movie in a previous video, so I'm not going to try to explain the Hoichi the Earless thing again, but suffice to say, it has nothing to do with the classic Japanese horror story. What this movie does do is call a truce with Japan, because Thailand is the new baddie in this film. That's right, the Thai Kumanthong is the big evil, and is yet again another part of the movie that makes no sense. But you're not here for the logic, you're here for the fun. After trying to jump off a bridge to her death, but being rescued by her sister, Yume discovers a wooden statue and takes it home. Researching the origins of the statue, she accidentally makes a blood sacrifice to it, unleashing Jarona, the supposed Kumanthong. Now let's not touch on the accuracy of this bit. Anyway, Jarona is a particularly nasty spirit, so Yume calls upon the professor with the cool machines from the previous movie and his sidekick to help get rid of her. He decides to rely on the trusty BCN, but we find out she isn't strong enough to defeat her. So they play the ultimate power move. They call BCN's immortal enemy Sadako in the hopes that she'll team up with BCN and defeat Jarona. Yep, it's insane, and yep, it's kinda awesome. These are the types of horror movies you usually get from China. The utterly ridiculous. It's just a rare occurrence when they're actually fun and entertaining, and these two movies definitely are. As a bonus, this movie is also available on YouTube with English subtitles. However, it is stuck behind a paywall for the Youku channel, but it's well worth the cost of a month's subscription. The only downside is the YouTube version has been modified from the original to remove some copyrighted music. So, this is another 5 Chinese horror movies you can consider for Halloween. Have you seen any of these, and what did you think of them? As always, please like this video if you enjoyed and subscribe to see future videos like this. Thank you for watching.